The Arizona sun blazed mercilessly overhead as Catherine Morrison urged her chestnut mare through the rocky terrain beyond her father's sprawling ranch. The wind whipped through her auburn hair, which she'd stubbornly refused to pin up despite her governess's protests. At 23, Kate had grown tired of the suffocating expectations that came with being Jeremiah Morrison's daughter, the wealthiest cattle baron in the territory. "Easy, Whiskey," she murmured to her horse as they navigated between towering saguaro cacti and jagged boulders. The landscape stretched endlessly before them, painted in shades of copper and gold. Kate had ridden this path dozens of times, finding solace in the desert's harsh beauty when the civilized world felt too constraining. She dismounted near a cluster of mesquite trees, seeking shade from the relentless heat. As she reached for her canteen, a distinctive rattle pierced the desert silence. Kate froze. 10 feet away, coiled beneath a flat stone, a diamondback rattlesnake raised its head, tongue flicking, tail vibrating its deadly warning. Her mare spooked, rearing back and galloping toward home, leaving Kate stranded. The snake's beady eyes fixed on her as she slowly reached for the Colt revolver at her hip. Her hand trembled. She'd never shot at a living creature before. "Don't move." The voice came from behind her, low and steady. Kate's blood ran cold. Apache. She'd heard enough stories about what happened to white women caught alone by Apache warriors, but the alternative was the rattlesnake's fangs. A shadow moved past her peripheral vision. In one fluid motion, a figure dropped from the rocks above, landing silently between Kate and the snake. The Apache warrior, tall, lean, dressed in traditional breechcloth and high moccasins, drew a knife faster than Kate could blink. With deadly precision, he severed the rattler's head. Kate's knees nearly buckled with relief, but when the warrior turned to face her, she gasped audibly. The left side of his face bore terrible scars, puckered skin that spoke of an old burn pulling at his eye and mouth. His long black hair was braided with leather and feathers, and despite his disfigurement, his right profile showed strong, noble features. "You safe now," he said in halting English, his voice deeper than she'd expected. Kate found her voice. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." The warrior studied her with dark, intelligent eyes. There was something profound in his gaze. Pain, perhaps, or resignation. He'd clearly expected her to recoil in horror at his appearance, as others undoubtedly had. "You not afraid?" he asked, seeming genuinely puzzled. Kate considered the question. She should be terrified. Alone in the desert with an Apache warrior, no weapon, no means of escape. Instead, she felt oddly safe. This man had just saved her life. Should I be? A ghost of a smile touched the unscarred side of his mouth. "Your people. They say Apache take white women, make slaves." "What do you say?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face as if trying to solve a puzzle. "I say, you have brave heart, foolish, riding alone, but brave." Kate felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the desert sun. When was the last time anyone had called her brave? In her world, ladies were expected to be delicate, fainting at the first sign of danger. "What's your name?" she asked. He hesitated. "Nalnish. Mean one who works." "I'm Catherine. Kate." "So Kate," he repeated, the name sounding musical in his accent. "Like a wild cat?" She laughed despite herself. "Something like that, I suppose." A distant sound made Nalnish's head snap up. Hoofbeats, riding hard. His expression shifted, becoming guarded. "Your people come, you tell them I help you." Kate looked into his scarred face, seeing past the damaged flesh to the man who'd risked himself to save a stranger. A white stranger. An enemy. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I'll tell them you helped me." Something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, gratitude, perhaps something deeper. He nodded once, then began to fade back into the rocks as silently as he'd appeared. "Nalnish," Kate called softly. He paused, looking back. "Thank you for everything." He watched her for another heartbeat, then vanished into the desert like smoke. 3 days had passed since the rattlesnake encounter, but Kate couldn't shake the memory of Nalnish's dark eyes or the gentle way he'd spoken her name. She told her father's ranch hands that an Apache had helped her, omitting the details that would have sent them into a fury. Even so, Jeremiah Morrison had doubled the guards and forbidden Kate from riding alone. "That savage could have killed you, Catherine," her father had thundered over dinner. "What kind of Apache helps a white woman? He was probably scouting for a raid." Kate bit her tongue, remembering the genuine concern in Nalnish's voice, the careful way he'd positioned himself between her and danger. There had been nothing threatening about him, only kindness and an inexplicable sadness. On the fourth evening, she slipped from the house after midnight, leading Whiskey quietly from the stable. The desert night was cool and silver-washed under the full moon. Kate rode to the same cluster of mesquite trees, though she couldn't explain why. Perhaps she hoped to understand what had passed between them in those brief moments. She didn't have to wait long. "You come back." Kate spun in the saddle. Nalnish emerged from the shadows, moving with the silent grace of a born hunter. In the moonlight, his scars seemed less prominent, his features more defined. Yes. Kate dismounted, suddenly feeling foolish. "I wanted to thank you properly." "You thank me?" "I remember. Do you often save foolish white women from rattlesnakes?" The corner of his mouth quirked upward. "First time." They stood several feet apart, the silence stretching between them. Kate found herself studying his face more closely, the strong line of his jaw, the intelligence in his eyes, the way the moonlight caught in his long hair. "Your people," she said carefully. "Do they know you helped me?" Nalnish's expression darkened. "My people. They not claim me." "What do you mean?" He touched the scarred side of his face unconsciously. "When boy fire take my face, medicine man say, I bring bad spirits, bad luck to tribe." Kate's heart clenched. "That's ridiculous. You're a good man. I can see it." "You see?" His voice carried a note of wonder. "My own people, they turn away. White people, they see Apache, see enemy. You see..." "What?" Kate stepped closer, close enough to see the pain he carried like a weight on his shoulders. "I see someone who risked his life to save a stranger. I see kindness, courage." Nalnish stared at her as if she'd spoken in a foreign tongue. "They say I too ugly for wife. No Apache woman wants scarred warrior." The words hit Kate like a physical blow. She thought of the men who'd courted her, pampered sons of wealthy families who saw only her father's money and her pretty face. None had ever looked deeper. "Then Apache women are fools," she said fiercely. His eyes widened. For a moment neither spoke. Then Nalnish did something unexpected. He laughed, a rich, warm sound that transformed his entire face. "Wildcat has sharp claws," he said. Kate felt a smile tug at her lips. "When necessary." They talked through the night, halting conversations where Nalnish's limited English mixed with gestures and Kate's growing fascination. He told her about tracking game through the mountains, about the Apache way of reading the desert's moods. She spoke of her education back east, her frustration with society's expectations, her love for the wild country her father was determined to tame. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Kate realized she'd never felt so understood. This scarred warrior, this supposed enemy, listened to her words as if they mattered. "I must go," she said reluctantly. Nalnish nodded, but made no move to leave. "You come again?" The question hung between them, weighted with implications neither wanted to examine too closely. Kate knew what her answer should be, knew the danger, the impossibility, the scandal that would destroy both their lives. "Yes," she whispered. A smile transformed his scarred features. "I wait." As Kate rode back toward the ranch, the rising sun at her back, she felt as if she were awakening from a long sleep. For the first time in her life, someone had seen her, really seen her, and hadn't found her wanting. Behind her, Nalnish watched until she disappeared, his hand pressed to his chest where something had stirred to life, something he'd thought the fire had burned out of him forever. For 2 weeks, Kate and Nalnish met in secret, beneath the desert stars. What began as curiosity had blossomed into something far more dangerous: love. Each night, Kate found new depths in the scarred warrior's soul. He taught her to read animal tracks in the sand, to identify edible plants, to move silently through the desert. In return, she shared stories of distant cities, of books and music and dreams beyond the harsh frontier. "You different from stories," Nalnish said one night, as they sat beside a small fire hidden in a rocky alcove. "Apache say white women weak, cry much." Kate laughed, adjusting the Apache-style clothing he'd brought her, deerskin dress and moccasins that let her move freely. "And what do white people say about Apache men?" "That we savage, take scalps, steal women." "Are you going to steal me?" Kate asked, the question half teasing, half serious. Nalnish grew quiet, his scarred face thoughtful in the firelight. "Maybe you steal me first." The words hung between them, loaded with meaning. Kate felt her heart racing as he reached out, his fingertips barely grazing her cheek. "Kate," he whispered, her name like a prayer on his lips. She leaned into his touch, her hand covering his. I never thought I could feel this way about anyone. Your father, he'd kill me if he know. My father doesn't own my heart. Nalnish searched her face. What we do? No future for Apache warrior and white woman. Your world, my world. They not let us be. Kate had wrestled with the same thoughts during sleepless days at the ranch. Their love was impossible by every measure of their societies, yet it felt more real than anything she'd ever known. Then we make our own world, she said. Before either could think of all the reasons why it wouldn't work, Nalnish pulled her close. Their lips met in a kiss that tasted of desert wind and desperate hope. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not the hatred between their peoples, not the obstacles ahead, not the danger surrounding them. They broke apart, breathless, foreheads touching. I love you, Kate whispered in English, then repeated the phrase in the Apache words he'd taught her. Shilbi Hoju, he replied, his voice rough with emotion. You are beautiful to me. Their happiness was shattered by the sound of approaching horses, many horses riding hard. Nalnish sprang to his feet, instantly alert. Stay hidden, he commanded, dousing the fire. Through a gap in the rocks, Kate saw torches bobbing in the darkness. Her father's voice cut through the night air. Spread out, the tracks led this way. That Apache's been meeting someone, and by God I'll know who. Kate's blood turned to ice. Someone had seen her, followed her. She grabbed Nalnish's arm. Run. Please, just run. He shook his head. I not leave you. If they find us together, they'll kill you. And me. She swallowed hard, knowing her father's rage would be terrible. Catherine Morrison, Jeremiah's voice boomed across the desert. I know you're out here, girl. Come out now, or I'll let my men search every inch of this godforsaken wasteland. Nalnish's jaw tightened. He know. Kate made a desperate decision. Pulling off her Apache dress, she quickly changed back into her riding clothes. I'll go to them. Tell them I was just riding, that I never saw you. They not believe. They have to. Kate gripped his hands. Meet me tomorrow night at the old mine shaft north of here. We'll figure out what to do. Kate, promise me. He nodded reluctantly. I promise. Kate kissed him once more, fierce and quick, then stepped out of the alcove with her hands raised. Father, I'm here. Jeremiah Morrison rode up with 6 armed men, his weathered face twisted with fury. What in blazes are you doing out here, Catherine? I couldn't sleep. I came for a ride. Alone? In the middle of the night? After I expressly forbade it? Kate lifted her chin defiantly. I'm not a child anymore. Her father dismounted, studying her face in the torchlight. Sam Jenkins saw you riding this way for the past 2 weeks. Same time, same direction. You meeting someone? Of course not. Because if I find out you've been consorting with that Apache savage, You'll what? Kate's temper flared. Lock me in my room, send me back east. I'm 23 years old, father. You can't control my every breath. Jeremiah grabbed her shoulders. I can when your safety's concerned. That Apache's been scouting our land, Catherine. There's talk of war parties gathering in the mountains. Kate's heart sank. War. It would make everything impossible. Get on your horse, her father ordered. We're going home, and you're not leaving the ranch again without an armed escort. As they rode back through the desert, Kate felt Nalnish's eyes watching from the shadows. Tomorrow night couldn't come soon enough, and she prayed it wouldn't be too late. Kate paced her bedroom like a caged wildcat, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Her father had posted guards around the house and stationed men at the stable. Every window, every door was watched. But Jeremiah Morrison had forgotten one thing about his daughter. Years of exploring the ranch had taught her every secret passage, every hidden route. As darkness fell, she slipped through the root cellar and emerged behind the smokehouse. Moving like Nalnish had taught her, she made her way on foot toward the abandoned mine shaft, her heart hammering with each step. The old copper mine had been worked out years ago, leaving behind a maze of tunnels in the hillside. Kate found Nalnish waiting in the shadows of the entrance, his face grim in the moonlight. You came, he said, relief evident in his voice. I promised. Kate threw herself into his arms, drawing strength from his embrace. Fathers posted guards everywhere. He knows something. Nalnish held her tight, breathing in the scent of her hair. More than he know. Apache War Chief Geronimo. He gather warriors. Talk of driving white settlers from Apache land. Kate pulled back to look at him. Will you join them? They not want me, remember? Scarred face bring bad medicine. His voice carried old pain, but also something else. Resolve. But war come anyway. Soon, no place safe for Apache who help white woman. Then we have to leave. Tonight. Where we go, your people hunt us. My people cast me out. No place in world for Apache warrior and white woman. Kate cupped his scarred face in her hands. There has to be somewhere. California, maybe, or Colorado territory. Somewhere we can start fresh. You leave everything, your father, your home? You are my home now. Nalnish closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. I want believe. But Kate... The sound of horses cut him off. Many horses, surrounding the mine. Torchlight danced across the rocks, as Jeremiah Morrison's voice echoed off the stone walls. Catherine, I know you're in there. Come out now. And maybe I won't kill your Apache lover where he stands. Kate's blood froze. How did he find us? Someone track us. Nalnish's hand went to his knife. I not let them take you, and I won't let them kill you. Kate gripped his arm. There's another way out. The back tunnel. It leads to Dead Horse Canyon. Too dangerous. Canyon walls too steep. Not if we climb together. They could hear men dismounting, boots crunching on gravel. Jeremiah's voice grew closer. You've got 1 minute, Catherine. Then we're coming in. Hand in hand, Kate and Nalnish fled deeper into the mine. The tunnels were pitch black, filled with the scurrying sounds of bats and rodents. Kate led from memory, feeling along the rough walls until they reached the back entrance, a narrow opening that led to a ledge high above Dead Horse Canyon. There, she whispered, pointing to the moonlit cliff face. We can climb down. Nalnish studied the sheer drop, then looked at Kate's delicate hands, her soft-soled boots. You not survive this climb. I will, if you teach me. Behind them, they could hear the search party entering the mine, their voices echoing through the tunnels. Kate! Her father's bellow was closer now. Don't make me drag you out of here. Nalnish pulled Kate close, his scarred face fierce with determination. Are you sure if we do this, no going back? Your old life it end tonight. Kate looked into his dark eyes, seeing her future reflected there, uncertain, dangerous, but filled with love. My old life ended the night I met you. He kissed her then, hard and desperate, pouring all his love and fear into that single moment. When they broke apart, he was smiling, the first genuine, unguarded smile she'd ever seen from him. Then we climb, Wildcat. Together. They stepped onto the narrow ledge as torchlight flickered at the mine entrance behind them. The canyon yawned below, black and treacherous in the moonlight, but Kate felt no fear, only the wild exhilaration of choosing her own fate. Catherine! Her father's voice was raw with rage, and something that might have been grief. Please, think about what you're doing. Kate looked back one last time at the life she was leaving behind. Then she turned to Nalnish, took his outstretched hand and stepped into the unknown. Together, she whispered. Together, he agreed. And with the shouts of the search party echoing behind them, they began their descent into a new life, or a shared death. Either way, they would face it side by side. The climb down Dead Horse Canyon nearly killed them both. Kate's hands were raw and bleeding by the time they reached the rocky bottom, her muscles screaming from the strain. But Nalnish's patient guidance and steady voice had kept her moving through the worst moments. When her strength failed, he'd supported her weight with his own body, never once suggesting they turn back. They spent 3 days hiding in the canyon, living on water from a hidden spring and roots Nalnish knew were safe to eat. On the third night, when no search parties had appeared, they began their journey west toward California territory. For 2 months they traveled by night and hid by day, avoiding settlements and main trails. Kate learned to move silently through the wilderness, to identify safe water, to read the sky for weather signs. Her soft hands grew calloused, her pale skin bronzed by the desert sun. She had never felt stronger or more alive. Nalnish proved an expert guide, leading them through hidden passes and forgotten trails. But more than that, he was her anchor in the storm of uncertainty. When she wept for the father she'd left behind, he held her. When fear threatened to overwhelm her, he reminded her of their shared strength. You regret? He asked one evening, as they camped in a sheltered grove, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Kate considered the question seriously. Her life of comfort and privilege seemed like a distant dream now. Her father would have disowned her by now if grief hadn't killed him first. She would never see the Morrison ranch again, never attend another social gathering, never wear silk dresses or sleep in a soft bed. No, she said finally. Do you? Nalnish touched the scarred side of his face, a gesture that had become unconscious. My whole life I believe I too ugly for love. You show me different. How I regret gift like this. They reached the California goldfields in late autumn, just as the first snows dusted the Sierra Nevada peaks. The mining camps were rough, dangerous places where men asked few questions about a person's past. Kate bound her breasts, cut her hair short, and became Kit Morrison, Nalnish's partner in a small mining claim they purchased with jewelry Kate had sewn into her clothing. The work was backbreaking. They spent their days bent over sluice boxes, panning for the tiny flakes of gold that meant the difference between eating and starving. Kate's hands, once soft as silk, became as rough as any miner's, but in the evenings, when they returned to their small cabin, Nalnish would tend her cuts and bruises with gentle hands, and she would trace the scars on his face with loving fingers. "Beautiful," she would whisper, and he would smile, that radiant smile that transformed his entire being. The other miners accepted them as partners, never suspecting the truth. To the rough-and-tumble world of the goldfields, they were simply Kit and Nash, two men working a claim together. Kate learned to spit and swagger and curse like the miners around her, while Nalnish's tracking skills made him invaluable for hunting game to supplement their meager supplies. One evening in their second year, Kate sat on the porch of their cabin, watching Nalnish return from the stream where he'd been checking their traps. The setting sun caught the silver threads now visible in his black hair, and she realized they were both aging, changing, growing into this life they'd chosen. "Good day?" he asked, settling beside her. Kate showed him the small pouch of gold dust she'd panned. "Enough for winter supplies and a little extra. Enough to send letter." Kate's heart clenched. For months, Nalnish had been suggesting she write to her father, not to return, but to let him know she was alive and well. She'd always refused, afraid that contact would somehow lead to discovery. "You think it's safe? Think your father deserved to know his daughter live, happy?" That night, Kate penned a careful letter to Jeremiah Morrison, telling him she was alive, married to a good man, and living freely in California. She didn't mention where or give any details that might lead to pursuit, but she wanted him to know that his daughter had found love and purpose in the life she'd chosen. 3 years passed. Their mining claim proved modestly successful, and they saved enough to buy a small ranch in a remote valley. Kate learned to manage cattle and horses with the same determination she'd once applied to needlepoint and French. Nalnish's skills as a tracker and hunter made him sought after by neighboring ranchers, though they knew him simply as Nash Morrison, Kate's husband, who'd taken her name. On their 5th anniversary of that desperate climb from the mine shaft, Kate found Nalnish standing on their porch, watching the sunset. She slipped her arms around his waist, marveling at how perfectly she still fit against his side. "Happy?" she asked. Their old question. "With you always." He turned in her arms, his scarred face radiant in the golden light. "They say I too ugly for wife." Kate smiled, remembering those first words that had brought them together. "And I said take me anyway. Best decision you ever make? Best decision we ever made." As the stars emerged overhead, Kate reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They had lost everything, family, fortune, the approval of their worlds, but they had gained something infinitely more precious. In choosing each other, they had discovered that love could indeed conquer prejudice, that two outcasts could create their own place in the world. The Apache warrior who was told he was too ugly for love had found a woman who saw only beauty in his scars. The wealthy rancher's daughter had discovered that true richness lay not in gold or cattle, but in the heart of a man who loved her unconditionally. Under the vast California sky, surrounded by the ranch they had built together with their own hands, Kate and Nalnish Morrison had found their happy ending, not in the acceptance of others, but in the perfect acceptance they had found in each other.